You are creative, and whether you believe it or not, it's true. I sometimes hear people say, I'm not creative. Oh, I just do this. I work at this job. It's not really creative. But every single person is creative. And I recently read a book by Rick Rubin. It's called The Creative Act, A Way of Being. I've got it here on my Kindle. Not sure if you can see that. But honestly, probably the best book I read this year. It's actually not that long, but I took ages to read it because I was just soaking it up, every single chapter, even though they're not really chapters because the book's more proverbial. It's not even numbered. I think there are 78 chapters or thoughts in this book. And yeah, it's great. I honestly just wanted to share a bit of what I learned from the book. And yeah, this book is all about the fact that we are all creative. And as a Christian, a follower of Jesus who believes in a created God and that we're all made in his image, I think that the thought of us all being creative is actually biblical because God made us in his image and he is creator God. Anyways, I just wanted to share the first chapter with you and kind of read a little bit. The chapters aren't very long at all. Some are like super short, like 2 paragraphs long, and then others are a little longer, but the way it reads is just so easy. You could literally open this book up to any page and get something out of it. Rick Rubin, if you don't know who he is, by the way, he is one of the greats in terms of music, and now, I mean, I'd consider him great as an artist and an author, but he has produced some of the coolest songs by some of the coolest artists to ever exist, in my opinion anyway. I'll put a few on the screen, a few artists that he's worked with. But yeah, he wrote this book and people weren't actually expecting this book from him. They were expecting more of an autobiography. And I'm glad he went with this decision to make a book about creativity because it's fire. Anyways, the first chapter or section or whatever is titled Everyone is a Creator, which is basically what I'm talking about in this video. And I just wanted to read this chapter to you. It's not going to be very long. Yeah, it's literally 2 Kindle pages and the Kindle is tiny. So I'm just going to read it, grab a snack and get comfy. I'm not sure if you're allowed to do this on YouTube. Anyways, everyone is a creator. Those who do not engage in the traditional arts might be wary of calling themselves artists. They might perceive creativity as something extraordinary or beyond their capabilities, a calling for the special few who are born with these gifts. Fortunately, this is not the case. Creativity is not a rare ability. It is not difficult to access. Creativity is a fundamental aspect of being human. It's our birthright, and it's for all of us. Creativity doesn't exclusively relate to making art. We all engage in this act on a daily basis. To create is to bring something into existence that wasn't there before. It could be a conversation, the solution to a problem, a note to a friend, the rearrangement of furniture in a room, a new route home to avoid a traffic jam. What you make doesn't have to be witnessed, recorded, sold, or encased in glass for it to be a work of art. Through the ordinary state of being, we're already creators in the most profound way, creating our experience of reality and composing the world we perceive. By the mere fact of being alive, we are active participants, in the ongoing process of creation. Your entire life is a form of self-expression. You exist as a creative being in a creative universe, a singular work of art. How good. Yeah, I love how he uses the word creation, because that's very Christian language, as a way to refer to nature and the universe. It's a creation, and I'm not exactly sure what Rick Rubin believes. In the book, he kind of refers to a God, a universe, a source, capital S, source, by which we create and tune into. And so, yeah, it's not necessarily Christian, but as a Christian, it's very relatable to read. But yeah, I love that idea that all of us are creative, because I think if you're someone who doesn't consider yourself creative, you're not giving yourself enough credit. I mean, merely speaking words, speaking a sentence out into the world is you being creative. You're taking what you've learned and you're constructing a sentence. Like, that might seem so normal and uncreative, but in reality, that is creative. And yeah, as I mentioned before, it's no wonder, because we're created in the image of God to create. And I myself consider myself a creative. You know, I sing, I make music, and I formally produce and release these works of art. I make the artwork or album covers or whatever and put it out into the world. And so, yeah, I'm very much attuned to the fact that I am creative and that I reflect God's image in that way. But yeah, what I love about this book is that it's a reminder that we are all creative. And I think it's important to call that out in each other. And I also want to just mention, like, it's so crazy how in the creative world, I've noticed that there's almost a resistance. I guess this is everywhere in every part of the world, in every industry, but especially in the creative industry, I feel like it can be quite polarizing with belief in God versus, you know, atheism or secularism. It's interesting how, you know, it's dominated by this kind of secular perspective when, you know, God is an artist. And on the flip side of that, Christianity and belief in God is seen as void of color almost. It seems so mundane and uncreative. And I think that's a fairly recent thing when we look at human history as a whole. I mean, you look at how much the church influenced arts back in the day, you know, in the Middle Ages and, you know, throughout that period of Renaissance, I guess, that kind of aesthetic with, you know, Michelangelo and the sculpture of David. And you think about cathedrals and glass windows, these are so creative. And I think as society, the church and Christianity was seen as this creative place, but now it's, yeah, I think, I'm not sure why exactly. I think, well, obviously the rise of secularism and rejection of God. And to be fair, a lot of people have rejected a God that has been misrepresented to them. So there's that as well. That's a whole other conversation. But yeah, it's interesting how the Christian life is seen as bland and rigid and uncreative when God is the creator who spoke things into existence, and he created us in his image to create as well and to express ourselves. And I think at the end of the day, it is tough being a creative with the sinful nature. If you're not a Christian and you don't have a worldview where there is a God and a devil, you know, the lines of good and evil are often very blurred. Even with the way that we express ourselves, it's easy to express things that are of the flesh, like lust, pride, all those kinds of things. And those things are authentic to our sinful self. But the Christian creative has this calling, this challenge to express our true selves who are in Christ and not our false selves and our flesh meaning sinful, our fallen nature. But I think that's the challenge and what makes things interesting. Yeah, we were given this desire to create and to express ourselves, and that's inherently good, but because of our fallen world and because things have been perverted by evil and sin, it's just affected the way that we express ourselves. And I think at the end of the day, I would rather have my art submitted to Christ than, you know, submit myself to art and make it an idol. And I think true and beautiful art glorifies God. We all have a muse, so if God's not our muse, something else will be. Either ourselves, other people, money, all these other gods, lowercase gods out there. Anyways, kind of went on a little tangent, but I hope this has been helpful, and I hope this encourages you, those of you who don't consider yourselves creative, to acknowledge your creativity. And for those who do consider themselves creative, I hope this reaffirms that and encourages you to continue to create in whatever you do, whatever job you have, whether it's literally painting and artwork, or it's, you know, in admin or accounting. Like, it's still creative. I feel like accounting is like one end of the spectrum, and, you know, being a painter is on the other side. But There are creative aspects to every single job, and so we just got to find it and, yeah, use our gifts to glorify God, use our creativity to glorify the Creator, because, yeah, I mean, to think that I serve a God who is the GOAT creator, the greatest of all time, is just so cool. And oftentimes we can think of, his creative title as kind of like this authority. And yes, him being the creator does mean that he has most authority, but we can also see it in another way of him being the greatest artist of all time. And so anyways, those are my thoughts. Go read this book by Rick Rubin, The Creative Act, A Way of Being. And yeah, thanks for watching and listening to my thoughts and my ramblings. I'll see you in my next video. Peace out.